Go. It's a line number one. Say good morning to the independent member of the House of Assembly, serving the folks of Mount Pearl-Southlands, MHA Paul Lane. Good morning, Paul. You're on the air.
Good morning, Paddy. How are you this morning?
Top shelf today. How you doing?
I'm best kind by best kind. I hope you enjoyed your little vacation and everything.
Thank you. I did.
Yeah, that's good.
I'm still recovering, though, man. It's a funny thing. People always say you need a holiday after your holidays, and I'm feeling exactly that way here today.
Well, you know what? That's absolutely true. Particularly, I find if you go somewhere new, I think that what ends up happening is that you want to take in everything. You feel like you're gypping yourself somehow if you miss even one little thing, and you end up going flat out, and you get to experience a lot. But like you say, once it's all over, you didn't take any time to actually relax. And like you say, you need a vacation from your vacation.
Yeah, well, I tell you, talking about getting gypped, I tell you what, you can't go anywhere without someone trying to sell you something in some of these places. So my visa got to work out, and so did the feet. The wife breaks out the Fitbit. We walked 120 kilometers on my holidays.
Wow.
I'm used to some beach holidays where 120 feet a day was max.
There you go. I hear you.
What else is on your mind? What do you got?
But anyway, Paddy, I just wanted to raise the issue, and I know others have raised this, but I just want to talk for a moment about the roads in our province. And yesterday I just took a little day trip, myself and my daughter and son-in-law, and we took a run down to Placentia, down to Castle Hill, and then we proceeded along the Cape Shore, and with the intention of going to the Bird Rock or the Cape St. Mary's Sanctuary, whatever you want to call it, the proper name, and of course then along through to the Colonnet Road and on the Salmon Line of the Salmon Nature Park and so on. And I got to say, Paddy, that once we left Placentia, there should have been a sign put up that said potholes ahead from here to St. Catharines, because I never saw the likes in my life before. I've traveled a fair bit around the province over the years, and I've been down that way before, out to the bird sanctuary and so on. And
the St. Mary's Ecological Reserve.
Correct.
Oh, okay.
And it's never been great, but I've never seen it as bad as what it was when I drove out there yesterday. You couldn't go. There were areas out around St. Bride's and so on where you literally had to go over onto the shoulder of the road, or you had to go into the oncoming traffic lane to navigate around what I would consider craters, not potholes. And I'll tell you, it was a mechanic's dream for sure.
Well, I mean, one of the growth industries in the province could be just making signs that says potholes ahead. There's no doubt.
Yeah,
but, Paul, here's the issue. And this, having sat in a caucus room, is that I could open a phone book, just flip the pages with my eyes closed, point down to a number, call that person, say, what are the roads like in your area? And they say terrible. And that's everywhere. Labrador is particularly terrible, and all across the island. So, as much as, once again, I don't defend the government on anything, or certainly very little. But what do you do, right? So people deserve better. Fair enough. But they deserve better in St. Bride's. They deserve better in Stephenville. They deserve better in Lanzaclair. They deserve better in Mount Pearl. So what do we do? Because there's a short season. You can only pave so much during the short summer here. So... not to defend the government, but what do you do? No. And how do you craft this message? I think they're trying to do something realistic with the 5-year plan anyway.
Well, to be honest with you, Paddy, and I don't have a problem with when the government is looking at this 5-year plan, and there's people, because I've heard some of the commentary, people saying, the 5-year and I'm not on it, and of course that makes them even, angrier, especially if they feel the roads are in bad condition, and I can understand that. But I do think, in defense of the government on this particular piece, I do think that, whether it works out the way they say it's going to work out or not, I do think they're on the right track in the sense of trying to prioritize roads based on greatest need, but in addition to that, also factoring in things such as economic development, like if there's a major tourist attractions, if there are industry that you need good roads to back and forth through and so on. Factoring that in there as well as conditions of road and trying to take the politics out of it. Now, I would argue that as long as it's going through the department and hence the minister and hence cabinet, will you actually take the politics out? I don't know. Even if they do take it out, people will be skeptical and perhaps not believe that it's taken out. But I do like the idea of having a longer-term plan and actually prioritizing work and so on, as opposed to just simply doing what was traditionally the case, where you'd say, this year we got a pot of money of X amount of dollars, we divide that up into 48 districts, and say, okay, you're getting 1.5 kilometers, and you're getting 1.5 kilometers, and you're getting 1.5 kilometers.
Okay, Paul, listen.
Tell me where you want to put it to.
You sat with the majority government. Describe to me some of the instances you saw, and the MHA is responsible, who coerced the minister responsible for the Department of Highways at the time to make a decision not based on priority but based on MHA influence. Describe what you've seen, who was involved, and let's go ahead and have the conversation. You had first-hand information.
Okay, well, I would say to you, Paddy, it was my experience that it wasn't the case of a people sat around a caucus table doing that. What it was a case of, and I'll first speak, there's two pots of money, if you will, okay? The larger towns, and certainly City of Pearl, responsible for, they fall under the multi-year cap funding. So they always used to get money for a 3-year block of money. And then the cities or the large towns would determine themselves. They would determine where they spent that money in their city or town. When it came to the smaller rural areas, it was a different pot of money. And basically, it was my experience, what I saw, and again, I wouldn't have been privy to it per se because I represented a large town and hence the multi-year, and therefore I had no influence. It was the city of Mount Pearl who decided where they were going to spend their money. But what would basically happen is that there would be a pot of money and it would basically be divided up amongst the districts. And it was certainly my understanding then that they would the minister would consult with the member for that particular district and say, here's how much asphalt you're entitled to. And they would seek the member's input as to where they thought that should go. Now, whether the member decided to put asphalt in certain places for where the greatest actual need was, or whether they did it for political purposes, or whether they said, well, this town didn't vote for me, so the heck with them, and this town did vote for me, so I owe them. I mean, I don't know. I wouldn't, like I said, representing the large area, I would not have had that conversation with a minister because, like I said, the money would go to Mount Pearl and the city would decide. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, no,
I totally get it. And it was, look, it's not going away. Even with the wiggle room available in the 5-year plan does not eliminate the partisan approach to the politics of pavement. We all get that. It's not, you're never going to have it 100% independent and secured and priority list based in its entirety. So I decided that's because you were in the government, based on what the Auditor General said about 46% of the paving being done or the roadwork being done was based on MHA influence versus 23% based on the priority list. And that's damning.
Well, one thing I would say is that if we were to move towards regional style government, which is something that municipalities, Newfoundland Labrador, have been calling for years now, and you actually had regional authorities, I think that one of the advantages with that could be that, like the large the city, large towns, the government could simply fund regional authority, let them decide where the priorities should be, and that way you would take the politics in terms of the actual member and the government out of it. They would simply fund the authority and let the authority decide. That's one possible way that I could see that you could take that perceived influence out of there.
Well, there's lots of ways to do it, but as long as there's going to be politicians making decisions, it's going to have a political bent, and that's just the imperfect world we live in with our type of democracy. Paul, I'm off to the break, but appreciate your time.
Not a problem, Paddy. Always a pleasure. And, like I said, there's no easy... Look, I'm not going to say there's easy answers to this. If it was simple, it would have been fixed long ago. But I do know that, that currently what I saw was absolutely deplorable. I'm told by people that that's just one example of the many situations that we see across the province. And somehow we got to figure this out and get it right.
Understood and point taken. Thanks for your time.
Paddy, have a good day.
You too. All the best.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.